putting a wheel bearing assembly on the right front of a 2017 Chevy Equinox. We're going to take the caliper off, so we're removing the caliper bolt. Sometimes you have to hold the slider that screws into because they'll turn. We remove the caliper from the caliper bracket. We're going to take the bolts that bolt the caliper bracket to the steering knuckle off. Now that we've got the bracket loose, we're going to take it off and then take the retaining screw that holds the rotor on the hub off. Sometimes the center of the rotor will rust to the hub, and when that's the case, you just take a hammer and hit the edge right like that. It only took one shot and it came loose. Now get your impact out and take that axle nut off. Now get a soft hammer and tap the axle shaft out of the hub. And now it's time to take the 3 bolts that come in from the back side that hold the hub assembly on. Now they've got the old hub assembly out, it's time to put the new one in. Put a little anti-seize on those splines on the axle so they don't get seized up in the new axle assembly. I took the wheel speed sensor out because I thought I might tear it up pulling the assembly out, but I'm gonna go ahead and stick it back in there and just be careful putting it back in because it's kind of a pain in the ass to take it out once the dust shield's on it. When you're putting the new wheel bearing assembly in there, you've got to make sure that axle's back past the little tab for the wheel speed sensor. I hope it's not a mistake not putting that thing in after I put the wheel bearing assembly in, but I think we'll make it. You got to hold that, or get somebody to help you hold that dust cover, the dust shield. You got to get it started on the splines. Pick that axle up, get it in there. It normally helps to get the wheels looking straight ahead on it before you put it in there. Once you get it in there, you got to line the holes up and get the bolts started.
That's good.
Once you get it lined up, I'm going to put a little Loctite on the 3 bolts that hold that assembly in and tighten it up. They torque to 74 foot-pounds. Well, that 74 foot-pounds is getting harder the older I get. After I get the wheel bearing assembly bolts tightened down to 74 foot-pounds, I'm going to put the rotor on there and then put a little Loctite on that screw that holds the rotor on the hub and just tighten it up. I don't normally torque that. It would probably torque to about 110 inch-pounds, something like that. But I just take my chances with it and tighten it up by hand. I do not know what that axle nut torques to, and the reason being is I can't really hold it still to torque it anyway. It's probably 180 pounds, something like that. I'm just going to hit it with my impact about 4 times once it seats, and that'll be good enough for the both of us. Now they've got the axle nut torqued, it's time to put the pad, the caliper bracket with the pads in it back on. Those bolts that hold that to the steering knuckle torque to 140 foot-pounds. I'm going to put a little Loctite on them and tighten them up. They're a little bit easier to tighten because they're with the longer torque wrench. All right, I've got the caliper put on it, and I've got the caliper bolts run up. I'm just going to check the torque on them. They're supposed to torque to 20 foot-pounds, but I usually torque them to about 27. That's it. Now all we've got to do is put the tire back on and torque the lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds, and should be ready to be on the road again. Thanks for watching.